welcome to another episode of Tiny Nest. I'm Kiva.
And I'm Jake. This series is following our tiny house project from the early stages all the way through to completion and beyond. So we use 2x6s for our floor framing, which are 5.5 inches. But the cavity we drop them into inside the trailer is 5 inches. So they sat a half inch higher than the surface of the trailer. So we've cut down a bunch of little strips of half-inch plywood as a shim to make the entire surface an equal plane. And we just glued them to the top of the sill gasket that we already glued down to the trailer with the same glue. And that's not structural or anything, it's just to keep them in place when we put down the vapor barrier and then the subfloor so that everything stays put and we have a nice surface to put it down to. And here we are, all insulated and leveled out and ready to put the vapor barrier and subfloor down.
Alright, so we finally got the vapor barrier down after a bit of a struggle with the wind. Just tacked it down with a few staples.
Alright, so we're putting the subfloor down and we're using 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood. And the first thing I want to mention is with our layout is that the trailer's 20 feet long and that's divisible by 4. And we're laying our sheets lengthwise so that they're perpendicular to the way the joists run. So I thought initially that 4 foot times 5 pieces and we'd be perfect, but because it's tongue and groove, each piece is very slightly shorter than 4 feet, just by a fraction of an inch. So if we were to put the sheets down starting nicely at one end and going all the way down, when we reach the far end we'd have a couple inches strip to fill in, and I didn't want to have to deal with that kind of situation. So what I did was I shifted our whole plan before we even built the floor framing over a bit so that we have essentially starting with about a half piece here, and then it's all full sheets, and then there'll be a half piece at the end. So there'll be no small strip. Both ends will end up with about roughly 2 feet of a sheet. And so we got started, we actually started with this piece and then fit this one staggered because we're gonna sort of go back and forth like this as we go with the pieces. So get that one in, cut this to size, put that one down, and now we're ready for this piece, which I was just gonna show you that we're using this acoustical sealant because normally, if you didn't have this vapor barrier, you'd put down an actual subfloor adhesive to stick it down and sort of fill in all the imperfections, but because we're doing a vapor barrier, regular adhesive would actually melt the plastic. So this stuff will stay flexible all the time. So same idea, we're just trying to fill in some imperfections and kind of soften your footstep on the finished floor. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this piece, we've already got one cut for here. So I'm just gonna fit the tongue into the previous groove a little bit before dropping it down on all the goop. And we already test fit this piece and trimmed the edge and made sure that it was nice and flush on the side and that it was going to fit here. And so I'm just going to whack it into place a little bit. Seems pretty good. And then we're screwing it down with, I think these are 2 or 2.5 inch deck screws. Alright, it's late in the evening and we just finished putting the subfloor down, and we started the day without the vapor barrier, and we got that on, and then the whole subfloor down in one day. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And we'll carry on with it tomorrow. Finished securing down the subfloor nice and tight, and then we went about laying out the square and the chalk lines for the wall plate. We very carefully got it to within like a 32nd of an inch to match our 3D model, so it'll be really easy to get all the measurements for our cuts and everything right off the model, use it as a plan. After we got the line snapped down, we folded all of the excess vapor barrier that was sticking out back over top, and then we're gonna put the bottom plates down on top of that and have the vapor barrier on the inside like I mentioned before, and it's all ready to go for the next step.